Here in the northern Rockies, dark winter months are outlasted in basements, dens, and nooks, where kindred souls gather to share intel, swap fly patterns, and relive the memories from seasons past. This gathering spot, known locally as a February room, is the inspiration for this podcast. No matter the season, the door is always open to those with a fly fishing story to tell. Brought to you by CD Fishing USA, the North American distributor for Composite Development's fly rods and fishing accessories. Tech, precision, ingenuity, legacy. Go to cdfishing.us and follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. Here's your host, Lauren Carnop, and this is the February Room.
This is the February Room, but obviously I'm not Lauren. I'm her husband, Justin, and she has allowed me to sit in this week specifically so I can chat with our special guest, someone who I share some common ground with. I'd like to welcome Elke Kirk to the podcast. Elke, thanks for doing this.
Hey, thanks for inviting. It's an honor to be on your podcast.
Yeah, and we're giving this another go-around. The first time we recorded this a week or so ago, we had some technical challenges, so I appreciate you being patient and giving us another shot, because I really, we do want to hear your story and find out more about you, your wife Alicia, your outfitting business Little Leaf, and what you guys are all about. But first of all, would you mind telling me a great fishing story that you got?
Oh, I got quite a few. There's so many, probably hard to think of one, but probably one right off the bat would be meeting one of my idols, fishing idols, a guy that got me interested, Jim Teeney. He's a famous legend here in the Pacific Northwest. And as a self-taught fly fisherman, I started reading a lot of books from Jim, and most of my books I found at used stores like Goodwills and stuff. And so I grabbed a bunch of them up, started reading them, and who would expected, 8-9 years later, come down and meet Mr. Teeney. He actually became one of our clientels one year.
Right, yeah, if I spot him, I got him. That's the Jim Teeney motto. I grew up watching those same videos.
Good guy, him and Donna, they're a fabulous couple, and I take it upon myself when I first started with my wife to follow kind of in their footsteps as being ambassadors to the sport, to the industry, to the natural resources.
Cool. What was it like fishing with Jim?
Well, for a while, I never knew that he was all for nymphs. I thought he did dries. So I seen him in action. The first time we had him was about 6 years ago. And we just start chatting. My wife had him at first. I had a half-day trip with another outfit. So we met up, and it wasn't even 5 minutes. I'm talking to Jim, and all of a sudden he hooks into a 22-inch red side. And so we had our laughs and had a really good time. That was just a monumental thing to have a guy like that, Jim and Donna out here. And 2 years after that, I really started getting into my own flies, my dry flies, my special predator flies that I use during our salmon fly hatch. And one year, Jim and Donna came down, and I gave Donna a couple of my predators, and she was catching fish left and right, no problem. And it got to be about half a day, and Jim wasn't getting that big of a fish. He was getting some here and there. And it was just a warm year. So I handed Jim one of my new predator flies, and I said, "Hey, Jim, you want to try out one of my new flies?" I said, "I just tied it last night. I put all these pretty cool UV color dubbing and stuff on it." I explained to him. He said, Sure, Elk." He put it on. I kid you not, on a second cast, another 22-inch fish slammed his fly. And she lit up. He was like, "That's amazing, Elk." He said, "You inspired me." He said, "I'm going to try a couple of my own dry fly patterns out."
Now, up to that point, had he just been running teeny nymphs?
Yeah. Matter of fact, Donna was below, and she saw that fish. She heard it because it was splashing good. It was coming out of the water. Those red sides are crazy. They're just like a bull going loose in a rodeo, just thrashing, just jumping up and down. And she looked up and she said, "Jim, are you using a dry fly?" And Jim said, "Yeah, Donna." He said, "It's been, what, 1972 the last time I used a dry fly."
No
I
way.
did not know that. That was so honorable.
Well, that's cool. Well, hey, you broke Jim Teeny, man. That's something you can hang your hat on. You got him off the teeny nymph and fishing a dry fly. That's awesome.
But that's probably one of my most best, proudest stories. And we always remain in contact. We go back and forth, and they're very supportive for what me and my wife stands for to our guide services.
Cool. And you know, as a guide, kind of what is your ethos? As a Native American, you've got definitely a a deeper connection to the land than a lot of people probably understand. And what do you guys impress upon your clients out there when you're guiding on the Deschutes?
Well, the best that we impressed them was the Deschutes herself. We don't have to do anything. I mean, the Deschutes is so good. She can make anybody into a guide. She has that magical touch that'll just get people connected and hooked. For life, like an addiction that you just can't get enough of.
Yeah, it's an amazing river, man. And what you said about Deschutes rainbows being rodeo, but that is right on cue. Pound for pound, there's probably not a harder freshwater fighting fish than a Deschutes red side. A big one is just they're tanks, man. They're so tough in that current. They're strong fish, and in their environment, they're quite an animal to deal with at the end of a line, for sure.
Oh yes, the biggest one our client got was 26 or 27. My wife landed one at 26 inches on a 6-weight single hand with a nymph, size 12. Yep.
Wow, I had no idea they even got that big in there.
Yeah, the tribes last year, Natural Resources, they had a big 26-inch hen female red side that was in a trap.
Wow, that's awesome, man. That's yeah, I fished that river for the better part of 20 years growing up, and my father represented the Warm Springs tribe, which you're a member of, correct?
Yes, me and Alicia.
Right. So, I was privileged enough that once a year during Payumsha, we got to go down and fish there on your water, and the rainbows were obviously noticeably larger on that side than the other side, but nothing ever close to 26, 27 inches. That's crazy, man. I couldn't imagine hooking one of those. That would be a rodeo for sure.
Well, I have like 43 years of fishing this river since I was 7 years old. So I know every single hole where they hide out. Oh yeah, I grew up following my dad, and my dad used to spearfish eels in the rivers. Not many people could say that nowadays.
No, I wouldn't say so.
I'd say my best accomplishments by hand is I caught 2 rainbow trout and I caught 2 salmon by hand.
Hand lining
just
them.
Sneaking up on them right in front of clients and grabbing them out of the water.
Oh, just grabbing them.
Yeah. Some kung fu mixed with some Native American sneaking techniques.
So tell me a little about Little Leaf Guide Service.
We've been in business for about 8 years. I've guided 10 years total, and we're 100% self-taught. And we're also self-taught on spay casting, on tying flies. My flies, I can't get enough compliments on them for the action they all come out. Me and my wife are also advocates for natural resources, so we go around and we speak at a lot of events and things that threaten our natural resources, whether it be in our town or another state or something. But if it's important places that's against human threats of life and animals, then we're there, because the U.S., United States, to us, it's like part of our heart, part of our soul. So we have to be there and take care of our natural resources, because that's who we are. That's where we're from. That's what is the difference between us, as Native Americans. So to be true caretakers, you gotta be able to sacrifice things, and we sacrifice and we give back and we share. So like the food that we get, all the extra fish we try to give it to our people that needs it, and which is a lot of people. So there's a lot of elders, sick people, and we try to give what we can. Wish we could have more, but we do what we do.
Right, and along those lines, dam removal is kind of at the forefront of the conversation right now up and down the Columbia, especially given the fact that the steelhead and salmon numbers are abysmal right now. What are your thoughts on the dam situation on the Columbia Elk?
Well, they've been in for over 150 years, a lot of these dams, and for a while everything was still kind of on balance, with nature. But now in today's modern times, everything's so industrialized that there's a mass logging, there's all kinds of mining, a lot of pollution and garbage that are laid out. So these things are affecting our planet. It's warming everything up. And since a youth, I'm seeing all these things before my very eyes. I'm seeing a water change. I'm seeing these invasive fish. I'm seeing these invasive algae change our rivers. And what's sad is people like our government and even our president, they don't see the balance in nature like we do. They don't see that how important it is that we have to preserve our nature. I mean, that's kind of like a filter, like an air filter you breathe. And if you keep dirt in that filter, you got to change it. The only thing is, we don't have no more filters. So we have to try to keep everything clean, try to keep our rivers clean. And right now, even when our own river is suffering on its, third, fourth year of low extinction runs, near extinction runs for the steelhead, Sandy, the Clackamas. I could keep going on all these names from Oregon to Washington down to California. And it's bad, and everybody's trying to, blame things like the sea lions. They're crying about not enough fish hatcheries. It's more than that. I mean, you could have thousands of fish hatcheries, but you don't have the habitat that could keep them balanced or fed. That's why we're having all these fish come back looking skinny and sickened and stuff. Yeah, so me and my wife, besides guiding, we're out there best we can. We worked with a lot of different outfits and businesses, companies, nonprofit, the DRA, Trout Unlimited. We've done so much work with these organizations. We got a couple wins on our notch, on our belts against big companies like corporations, oil refineries on the Columbia.
Was involved, weren't they trying to draw a bunch of water out of the Deschutes watershed or something like that to bottle it?
Yeah, right there in Cascade Lock, Oxbow Springs, on our ceded lands. They were trying to do it on a expired 1970s permit for $500, and they wanted 2.5 million gallons. And they were lying to the people, saying that they were going to provide jobs if they put it in there. Well, we found out that from the inside that it was going to be a robotic system, which only required 2 workers. So, but anyway, they were doing this during the drought season, where steelhead and sturgeon, we seen sturgeon that were floating belly up. I was seeing algae growth on a Columbia like I'd never ever seen before. So that was a reality check. And back then, that's pretty much what started me and my wife off back in 2015. Since then, we've pretty much made our presence known from Washington to Oregon, and we even went down to Standing Rock and stood against the No DAPL to stop the pipelines that was going through the Native Americans' reservations, their own lands. They were going to their graves, and then but he was lying, saying there was no graves through there. And yeah, it was an ugly thing. And you know why they went through there? They went through there because the original route was going through Bismarck, right above Bismarck. And one of the engineers thought, oh, if we have a leak, we're going to poison the town. Let's move it down below the city to the Native Americans. That's what they did.
Yeah, it's sad to say, man. Your guys' war is never over, is it?
No. But see, with me and my wife, we've been headstrong onto it. So we didn't want to just be one of that, a couple that's just going to stand on a street corner with some signs and get flipped off and yelled at and not really make a meaning. So we went to the horse's head itself. We went and started meeting with our senators or Democrats or Republicans for our state, and we even got to meet with the governor, where Governor Brown heard of us, where she even invited us to speak against the no offshore drilling by President Trump. And we had one day to think about it, because the next day we had a half trip and then we had to zip to Portland. And she said, come in your work clothes. So we did. And it was all a blessing because everything was full, parking lots, right? We pulled right up into front of the building and somebody just pulled out. Pulled in, made it right on time. But yeah, so we went far, all the way to the Capitol. We even did a rally against at the Capitol and had a record for the most Native Americans there. And we got Governor Brown to switch back and sign against. So that was another big win right there in itself. But we got a chance to talk to Senator Bentz and a few other Republican senators, and worked out a plan and told them our issues on these waters. And a few of them had connections on the rivers too, so they knew, they were aware of it, and they were going to push for it. And so it worked in our favor, and it felt like we had somewhat of a victory by going to the very, very top and talking to our government officials. And it feels good that they listened, and we could see that our natural resources are at least somewhat in good hands so far.
Well, you definitely have a warrior spirit, Elk. Can you tell me a little bit about your family lineage and where you think that comes from?
I'm proudly from 3 chief bloodlines. From my Walla Walla Nemapu side, I'm from Ollicott. He was the war chief and young brother to Chief Joseph. That's my grandma's side. And also my grandmother's side, I'm from Chief Alhai. He was a war chief during the Yakima Wars when his nephew, Chief Kumakan, was the head chief of the Yakima. And our Little Leaf business name is from my father's father. His name is Jack Little Leaf of the Piikani Nation in Brockett, Alberta, Canada. Piikani means Blackfeet. So my grandpa was a chief, and he was also a world champion traditional dancer, and his nickname was Bull Jingles back in the days, because I guess he was pretty fancy out there. Nice.
And did you inherit any of those skills from him?
I did. I was a very good traditional dancer, and I'm actually in the works of putting together an outfit again, because I haven't danced since the youth.
Oh, cool! But you're gonna get the band back together, so to speak, eh?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool, man. Awesome. I think you told me at one point you used to dance at Payumshaw when you were a young boy.
Yep, I used to be one of the only kids around here that used to have a war bonnet, and then I'd have my hawk feather bustle, and I'd have my leggings and my outfit. It was regalia. It was a good outfit, and I used to dance around Chief Bullneck back then. I didn't know he was a chief, but my dad always said, go dance by him. So I always danced by him.
Well, cool. Well, in addition to Jim Teeney, who are some of the other clients? I know a lot of, the native side of the Deschutes is a destination fishery, and it's on the bucket list of on a lot of anglers' lists. So a lot of folks, a lot of famous people, a lot of well-known anglers, they come out there to fish with y'all. Who else have you fished with that stands out?
Oh, we've fished with a local famous guy named Gary Lewis. He does the TV show Frontier Unlimited.
Oh, sure. I know Gary. I remember Gary from back in the Bend days.
Mm-hmm. The Samuel Pike, he's his video guy. And then we had Todd Mullen come out and do a video of us called Sky High Salmon Fly.
Oh, that's the best. That's the best salmon fly video. What's it called again? Sky High?
Sky High Salmon Fly. It's on YouTube also, and that already has like over 3.5 million views. That movie was pure love, and it was like my first time actually fishing the salmon fly hatch by myself, because when I first started guiding, I didn't have any really free time at all. And when I did fish, it was like way at the end of the day, the fish weren't going so crazy for the fly. So that was my first time. We didn't rehearse or nothing. That was just all cat, cast and get smashed.
How did that come about? That what did Todd Bowen reach out to you and just be like, "Hey, we want to come film this salmon fly video. Are you down?" And you just said, "Sure."
Our friend Jacob Lund, he was friends with Todd Mullen. Jacob Lund guided for us. He used to be with the Salmon Fly Syndicate.
Right on. Yeah, that's where I first saw the bow and arrow deal, and I was like, I got to learn how to do that. That's not as easy as it looks.
You got if you don't hold that hook right, that's the important part, the hook. A lot of people think of holding the line, but no, you got to hold the very butt end of the hook, otherwise you will get it. If you live in a bushy, jungly area like ourselves, you got to practice that move at least, once or twice a week. Keep it in motion.
Right, and on the Deschutes, there's no fishing from the boat. It's all wade fishing. You guys do a combination of floating and fishing from 4-wheel drive vehicles, right?
Yes, we have Suburbans that takes you spot to spot. And then our drift boat, our Pravati, it's an 18-footer. It could seat four anglers on it. And I could also take handicapped people, and we could get them in wheelchairs, get them in there, take the seats out. They're adjustable, full level floor. No problem. We've had many people that couldn't get out and about on the shore, so we could fish them from our side on the boat.
Nice. As far as the state of the Deschutes goes, years ago they put in what's called a selective water withdrawal system at Round Butte Dam. Am I accurate on that?
Yeah. Yep.
Can you tell me a little bit about that and what that has done to the river and what that whole system is all about? It's kind of an experimental thing. It had never been done before, so I'd like to learn more about that.
Well, from what I understand, it was PGE, the tribes. It was Madras, Culver, Bend, everybody all agreed upon it to put it in. So when they put it in, that's when we started noticing a change in the river. The temperature got a lot warmer, the clarity disappeared, and then we started seeing algae growth when they first put that thing in. And that's also when we first started seeing the black spot disease, cocopods, freshwater lice. And then we even started hearing the swirly disease and a few other, I can't remember what they were called, but yeah, it was not good. When they put that in, what it done is took the cold current flow of the Metolius River and it redirected it to the bottom of the dam, because the reservoir dam area is where they keep all their hatchery fish. All the fish that the people are catching in buoy 10 and stuff, they get it because of those fish that are transported and put out in reservoirs like that. So they turned that reservoir basically into like a big giant fish tank with more oxygen and cooler levels conditions. And at the same time, we were getting the warm spill-off water, the runoff water that just goes over the dam. We weren't getting from underneath the flow no more. We're getting a spill-off, and that was more higher levels of pH and nitrogen, which was the ingredients that grew the algae.
Essentially, they just kind of stirred up a big petri dish and kicked it out into the Deschutes.
Yep. And so what it did, the first 2 years, it killed off a lot of insects, and that was a bad year. So the fish are kind of starved, so they're eating snails. The snails were where they were getting a black spot parasite from, and the kingfisher birds were the ones that spread them up and down the river.
How many years has that been in place? Do you know?
What, 8, 9? I think 9 years now, 10 years now.
And so currently, what's the status of the river? Do you think? What's the trend?
So what's weird is we finally been getting higher water levels for the past 2 years, because we've been telling a lot of those PG guys on Facebook and everything they need to, kick out more water. Need more water. So they started putting out more water. In doing so, since last year was the first time in 7 years that we had clear water, because before that it was all dark green. That's why we started going with thick studs on our boots and having our clients have walking sticks, because you couldn't see no more. You couldn't sight fish no more. Well, now, since last year, since they've been increasing their flow and playing with that water withdrawal system, it has been somewhat better, I've noticed.
Well, that's good. They're listening to you then.
Right? But we still almost every trout we catch, bull trout, almost every species has the black spot, even the steelhead. If they settle in the river for a month, a little over a month, by the time they come to our way, when we catch them, you can see the black spot. And not many people are keen to knowing what to look for like we are.
What is black spot?
It's a parasite from those snails.
And what's it do to the fish? How do you detect it?
Supposedly, it doesn't do anything to the fish. The PG biologists are the ones who says that it doesn't do anything. They said it doesn't do no harm eating the fish. I asked them, I said, well, who'd you guys test it on? What's sad is they used our people and tried saying that the black spot disease was here historically, and it was never here, because my wife's grandfather is a tribal historian here. He's 90 years old, and he also had fishing businesses on the Columbia, on the Deschutes, and on Lake Billy, Chinook, and Semtustus. So he fished everywhere. He did it all. We showed him the black spot disease and said, "You ever seen this, Grandpa?" George Aguilar, Sr. He'd never ever seen it. He was appalled when he seen it.
And what's it look like on the fish?
It looks like on their belly. You really have to look on their belly, but you'll see like black dots, look like somebody sprinkled pepper on it. Fish that gets it worse are the bull trout, because they're more of a predatory fish. Good. So they get so much on their white bellies that it turns their white bellies into a dark, ugly color, like a solid color, because there's so thousands of them that it like matches their upper body.
Yeah, and that's your native resident fish there that they're doing everything to protect across the range. I mean,
technically, the bull trout in the Deschutes, they don't get no recognition.
That doesn't make any sense. I know I remember when I wasn't very old and I was fishing on the Deschutes, and I saw this guy catch this big bull trout, and I didn't know what it was. It was just this great big fish that wasn't a steelhead. It was actually, this was below Bend, between Bend and Billy Chinook. And the guy pulled it in and bonked it. And, I was like, God, what the heck was that thing? And in those days, you could just, you could catch and kill them still. And I mean, there were not very many big bull trout around, because you did not see very many in the Deschutes. The Metolius is a stronghold for them. You guys fished the Metolius some, right? Tell me a little bit about that. Like, I grew up fishing the Metolius, but I know that there's a zone down on the lower end that's tribal, that is kind of the stronghold of the fish that run up from Billy Chinook. And I know you and Alicia poke around in there a little bit.
It's a phenomenal place. It's treacherous on our side, because we have to 4x4, probably like an hour, and then walk down a steep hill just to get to the bottom. So it's a price you got to pay just to make it to the fishing hole. But we go down there a few times and take our spey rods, and it's phenomenal. My first bull trout was 39 inches. Yeah, they're a beast. And what's sad though is we've caught so many poachers in that area, chased them out, that almost every fish we caught, their mouths were deformed because of those treble hooks. They're just ripping out of their mouths every time they caught one.
Now, is that from guys motoring up from Billy Chinook and poaching tribal water?
Yep, going right there and fishing with the spinners. But yeah, anyway, almost every fish we caught, their mouths are all deformed just because they healed up from all those lures, treble hooks. So it's pretty sad seeing that. And on our side, I found a section down there that was like Christmas trees. There was lures all over, rapalas. Some of them were like a foot long.
What's being done about that? Are they patrolling that down there at all, or?
No, I have never ever seen no law enforcement down there ever patrolling it. And mainly because probably it's low. To get out there, you got to have kind of a smaller boat. You can't have like a big boat because there's some low sections.
Well, you got to get some game cameras up, and
Oh, the tribe does have some game cameras now. They've already caught a few people. And
oh,
same thing on
good.
the Deschutes.
That on the tribal land between Trout Creek.
Tribal and state.
Oh, cool.
And I guess the new thing is the game warden's going to be having some new drones out too.
Oh, good, good. They look like birds of prey or something.
Oh yeah, even our side fishing on a Deschutes, we at least running, I don't know, a good couple handful of poulters.
Oh yeah, for sure. Guys that float over there.
Usually, especially if it's newbies or something, but the guides and stuff, they kind of cross the line, or because there's an honorable system you got to have in the river. That's like theft, especially people like me and my wife. How hard we are. We're only seasonal, so each day counts. Those fish are our clients because that's what they pay for.
Right, and every guide knows the rules on that river. They all know where the boundary is. They all know the deal. And if they're over there, then in my mind, they deserve to be penalized because that's not right.
So it's a lot of education, frustration, that you see and go through. Trials and tribulations as a guide and somebody that takes things like that to the heart.
Would you like to see the Deschutes go to? Would you like them to change the regulations to allow fishing from the boat at all in any capacity?
No, not at all. Because when you do that, you're hooking in the fish, especially like during spawning time, trout mayfly season time. You hook to a fish, it's protecting its eggs, and you pull it way down the river and let it go. It's 50-50 chance you're gonna kill it. And that's what happened during the early 80s on the Deschutes when the red bands were nearing extinction. So that's when the tribes took over and they stopped the regulations on the boats going through and started restoring the riverbanks, restoration on streams, and started putting more into their hatchery, making it bigger.
Yeah, it's an interesting rule because out here in Montana, it's all fishing from the boat, but the majority of these fish here are not native fish, right? So there's only a few places where there's West Slope cutthroat, and then there's some bull trout strongholds, but the primary game fish being West Slope cutthroat and then rainbows and browns. But all the rainbows and browns are introduced fish, so they're not native. So you're not comparing apples to apples.
Right.
When people are like, well, why can't you fish from the boat on the Deschutes?
Yeah.
That's
Well, no.
stupid. Like, well, no, you don't get it. It's a completely different system.
And the tribe stopped letting the brown trout over to Pelton Dam 6 years ago. I think 6 years ago now. Since then, I've seen the river greatly improve. I've seen the fish just get football size. They're like footballs now, especially during the salmon fly hatch time.
Well, man, I want to come down there and book a day with you guys and bring my wife and go check it out. That story right there, the football size of the fish, the 26, 27-inch rainbows, even though the odds of getting one of those on a day or two are awfully slim, just to know that those are around really entices me to come back and fish the Deschutes with you. I'd love to get on that stretch.
Oh, that'd be awesome. That'd be good to have you guys out there. You guys already know you got to have 3X.
That's all I own. So we're in good shape there. You do have a fly rod you told me about that a client gave you though, which kind of surprised me because there wasn't there. I think you've had it for a while and maybe had one of the first ones. Tell me about that 6-weight XLS.
The CD rod, composite development. I got it from a guy named Bill, and this guy named Bill said that he got it from a friend from New Zealand that owns the CD company over in New Zealand or something like that.
I'll be danged. It must have been a friend of Marty Johansson's. Interesting. How long have you had it?
Almost, I'd say close to 5 years now. That's been my right hand weapon on that river. I even landed a couple steelhead on that thing. That 6-weight is badass.
Right on. Glad to hear that, man.
I've lost count on newbies, men and women that caught their first fish on that. So very good rod.
Well, if one of your clients ever slams it in the car door or anything, give me a shout and we'll replace it for you.
For sure.
All right, Elk man, I really appreciate you talking with us today. And yeah, like I said, we're going to come out and meet you and Alicia in person one of these days and get on the river.
Looking forward to it. If anybody wants to get a hold of us, Little Leaf Guides.
Elk Little Leaf on Instagram, at Elk Little Leaf, and Little Leaf Guide Service on Facebook.
For the inside scoop on the fly patterns we've discussed with our guest, check our blog for Flies of the February Room. If you would like to enter the February Room, shoot us an email at info@cdfishing.us. Also, remember to subscribe, share, and, if we've earned it, give us those 5 stars. Thanks for dropping by, and remember to go fishing.